Well, folks, I think we finally got some answers. You know, back in December and January, we were all wondering what was going on with the comics. Apparently, it wasn't no technical issues this time. Apparently, it wasn't any, Archie Comics is more focused on Riverdale, which apparently they are still. Which apparently they currently are, I should say. No, it wasn't any of that. It wasn't no cancellation of the book, but it came close to that. What it was Sega of Japan had ordered a cease and desist order. Yeah. Sega of Japan had ordered a cease and desist order on Archie Comics to stop publishing the comics. Which is why the subscriptions were removed. Which is why a lot of issues, even Mega Man, were being put on 70% order, or 70% off order, or sale. Which is why a lot of the comics were more individually sold, or being sold, than as a subscription. Apparently, the reason for this is because the contract was up for renewal. And Archie Comics and Sega of Japan had not renewed the contract at that point. Apparently, through negotiations and stuff, the contract apparently has been renewed. The reason we say this is because the solicits for April have come out, and it includes Sonic 291. So yeah, apparently Archie Comics' contract with Sega of Japan, SOJ, had to be renewed. And now I could see why a lot of people feel Archie Comics and Sega of Japan. Now I can understand why they feel they need to sell the comic currently as it is, the characters and all that, sell the rights to the current comic to another publisher. The reason being is the current publisher or the new publisher would keep the comics going as is, just under their name or under their publication, but also the fact that many people feel that a new publisher, whether it be IDW, Image, some up-and-coming published comic book company, they just feel somebody else would be more responsible about renewing contracts. Now, apparently, according to one source, all Archie Comics were delayed till April. Now, we're not sure if that means all Archie Sonic comics, even though it sounds like it, if all entirely. But here's the question. Here's the question that really gets me. If you're publishing a comic book, if you're licensing the rights, I should say, to publish a comic book based on any kind of franchise, or is an adaptation of any kind of media, wouldn't it make sense to renew, or not renew, but when you negotiate said contract, that you make sure said contract is for a certain amount of years? Wouldn't it make sense? Wouldn't it make sense to try to go, well, I don't know, if you have the money on both ends, to try to go with a, let's say, 20, 30-year contract? I'm just saying. Apparently, if this was a current contract that had expired and was in need of renewal, how many years was it? Was it 1 year? Was it 5 years? Was it 10 years? 20 years? Heck, I can almost think that if they started publishing the comic, then it would have been maybe a 25-year deal. So you're telling me that during that time of that 25-year contract, if that's how long the contract was, that nobody thought of contacting Sega of Japan last year and saying, hey, our contract's coming up, we want to renew? No one thought about doing that? Was Archie Comics so focused on Riverdale that they, on promoting Riverdale and getting that off the ground, that they pretty much ignored all their other comic book publications? Because if that is the case, that is truly pathetic. It's pathetic because if you want to compete and be in the top three, if not the number one, in the top three, top five, if not the number one comic book company in the world, then you need to get your priorities straight. Yes, you want to get Riverdale to be a very popular, very successful adaptation of your characters, no questions asked. But, here's the question I have for anybody listening and watching. Here's the question I have. Here's the question. If you were in charge of something, a comic book company, and you knew, and one of your first comics that you were publishing was a license to adapt a certain media, and your contract was, let's say, for 10 years, and your company lasted for 10 years, if not beyond that, wouldn't it make sense to say maybe a year or two before, hey, our contract's coming up within the next year or so, we want to renew, we want to automatically do a renewal right now so that when the next year comes up, it just automatically goes into the new one? In other words, the old contract ends and automatically the new contract begins? Wouldn't that make more sense? It's kind of like when you do a monthly subscription to a service. Like for me, I have Netflix streaming in Hulu. And every third of the month, just like tomorrow, every third of the month, they take out their share. They take out their share of their monthly payment. Automatically, they take it out. And if I don't have the money in there, they'll either still automatically take it out and get me to become and cause me to go overdraft, or they stop my service right then and there. Kind of like with cable. When the cable company didn't tell us that the internet was going to be cut off because we didn't pay them, we didn't get no notification. So I can understand how a lot of us fans of the Sonic comic feel. But still, even with that said, there are cable companies, including ours right now, currently, that at least acknowledge and tell us, hey, your bill is coming up. Your contract to have said service is coming up. If you do not pay to at least keep said service for the next 30-something days, we will be forced to cut you off. Wouldn't it make sense for Archie Comics or any comic book publisher, Marvel, DC, you name it, RDW, wouldn't it make sense to collaborate with the licensee, the person you're licensing the characters from, to make a comic book adaptation of the franchise, of their characters, if you will? Wouldn't it make sense to work something out to where you have an automatic renewal clause in the contract or in the agreement, to where you don't have to worry about having to negotiate? It's already in the clause, it's already in the contract that every certain amount of years it automatically renews. Wouldn't it make sense for them to do that? Put a clause in the contract saying, hey, Sega of Japan, our contracts are going to automatically renew within the next year. No worries. No worries about having to contact us and tell us to cease and desist. It automatically is going to renew. You're going to get your share. We're going to get our share of the pot, if you will. No questions asked. Everybody's happy. Wouldn't it make more sense for that to be? You can even add a stipulation in. Even in a contract like that, you can add a stipulation that after automatic renewal, that the only way the automatic renewal can come to an end is if one of the parties decides, Archie or Sega decides the comic comes to an end, decides to end the comic. Again, wouldn't it make sense to do that with that added stipulation that only one of the sides, the only way that automatic renewal comes to an end is if one of the sides decide, if one side or the other decides to cancel the book, end the partnership? I think it would make more sense. And I'm sure everybody else agrees. And there are businesses out there that do that. They do make automatic renewals in their contracts. Every year, it's an automatic renewal. I know every year with Amazon, they take out $90-something, $100-something every freaking August so that I can renew my Amazon Prime membership. Yeah, they do. They do this every August, or at least around that time frame. And yet, in business, wouldn't it make sense for people that would adapt and license out characters or franchises to make movie adaptations, TV adaptations, comic book adaptations? Wouldn't it make sense to put that in the contract, put that in the agreement, with the only stipulation is that the only way it ends or is canceled is if one side or the other decides to do so? Wouldn't it make sense? I think it would. Because in that way, people that follow said product, people that go out and subscribe to said comic, or go out and buy said tickets to see said movie series, or go out and watch and buy said seasons on DVD and Blu-ray of said television series that's adapted, or television series adaptation, it makes sense. It makes sense to do that because, let's face it, there's a lot of people, including myself, all right, that are subscribers to this comic. We are subscribers to this comic, and yet, we have to wait several months in between for another issue. Doesn't make any sense. Does not make any sense. Because let's be honest, folks. Let's be honest. All right? Let's be honest. Archie Comics does not need to put their fans through this. Nobody does. So I'm going to say this. Archie Comics, if I was you, with all due respect, you want to keep people from fearing the worst? Put an automatic renewal stipulation into your contracts with those you license out characters from. That way, you can decide, or they can decide, when and where the comic should end. Because you know what? It will basically save you a lot of trouble. But apparently, though, come April, if not earlier, we will get the comics back going again. So that basically means April will be $291, May $292, June $293, July $294, August $295, September $296, October $297, November $298, and December $299, January $300. Yep, we gotta wait about 11 months until $300. So, I guess it's better than nothing. But again, if I'm Archie Comics, I figure out a way to save myself a lot of trouble in the future. Let me know what you guys think down below.